Okie dokie. Genesis chapter 49. Verse 8. Judah, you are he whom your brothers shall praise. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He bows down, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion, who shall rouse him? Now, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh comes. And to him shall be the obedience of the people, binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He washed his garments in wine, his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, his teeth whiter than milk. So, man, got a lot of stuff in here with the Judah. So, let's see here. So, we know that Judah becomes the messianic line. The Messiah will come from Judah. And we'll see that play out even more. We'll see that the promise of the Messiah will come through David. And he's part of the tribe of Judah. We're going to find that everyone bows down to Judah. Judah will end up becoming the dominant house. And Jerusalem will be there in Judah. And he just describes the power. And he's describing this idea of the lion. And actually, there's actually two different words for lion here. And one describes a young lion and one describes an old lion. And so it talks about the young lion and the lion's whelp. You know, the idea of a young lion and just the power and the pride. And then the idea is then it talks about the old lion lying down. And who's going to arouse the old lion? And I think the idea there is this peace and security of this majestic animal, so full of power and strength as it lies down. Now, we now have in verse 10, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. Now, this is a symbol of authority. This idea the king has a scepter. And what we find is that the idea is they would have the authority to enact their laws, that they would be able to maintain the biblical laws that are laid down for the Jewish people from Exodus to Deuteronomy. We see all these laws, and many of those laws are judicial laws. I want to say there are three types of laws we find in the Old Testament. There are judicial laws, there are ceremonial laws, and there are moral laws. A moral law doesn't change. When God says something's evil, I think God thinks it's evil. He doesn't think it's evil for one people and not for another. And yet, then there is ceremonial laws. Things that the Jewish people did to practice Judaism. And then we have judicial laws. This was laws that God gave because government is an institution created by God. And so we see judicial laws. Now, unless you're actually, a Jew living in the kingdom of Judah or of Israel, then the judicial laws don't apply to us. And ceremonial laws don't apply to us because, well, I'm not practicing Judaism. I'm not going to the priesthood with an animal to sacrifice, etc. Moral laws stay. But all that said, part of their judicial laws was there was a death penalty, that if you committed certain crimes, you'd be put to death. And even in Babylon, I think I have a reference here to Ezra, chapter 1, verse 58, that they were able to maintain their judicial laws even when they were taken captive, that they were actually allowed to still self-govern themselves to an extent. Yet, later on, Rome would take away their right to capital punishment. This would happen in 6 AD after the revolt in response to the census that Rome was doing. This is not the census in the time of Jesus, but this would have been the census that took place in 6 AD. It is very well documented. Archelaus was king at this point. He took over after Herod the Great, his dad. And some of the results of this uprising was Archelaus was taken away from being king, and Rome put in their own procurator, or I think that's the right one, no, precept. There's multiple things. But this is where Pontius Pilate comes in. North was Herod the Tetrarch, but he didn't actually control the lower section. And there was also Philip. So they split Herod the Great's kingdom up, and Archelaus had that section that controlled Jerusalem. Anyway, that was taken away. Along with it, though, they didn't let the Jews do capital punishment anymore. Now, let's see here. I've got Babylonian Talmud, 437. The priests wept in the streets, woe unto us, for the scepter is departed from Judah, and the Messiah has not come. So we have in the Talmud the recordings of in 6 AD, when they lost the right to capital punishment, they thought everything was lost and gone. And that was kind of the thing, was this promise here says the scepter shall not depart in verse 10, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh comes. Now, Shiloh, whose right it is, in the Targum, they translate this just straight to Messiah. And so this is a prophecy of the Messiah, that the Messiah would come and they would never lose this right to rule themselves until their chosen ruler would show. Well, in 6 AD, the rabbis thought that the law was broken. They lost their right to capital punishment, and there was no Messiah. Little did they know that a 8 to 10-year-old or so was up in Nazareth, working in his dad's carpenter shop, or whatever exactly it was Joseph did, right, with a shop or whatnot. But Jesus was already on the scene. He was just a boy. He was not yet a man. But we find that the prophecy comes full. And it talks about the age that the Messiah is supposed to bring in. It talks about, into him shall be the obedience of the people. When the Messiah does finally come, there's going to be the obedience of the people, binding his donkey to the vine. And so there's something to that. A grapevine is not typically like what grapevine. He washed his garments, washed is past tense, just throwing this out here, his garments in wine, his clothes in the blood of grapes. And so we see them describing this age where everyone will be under his obedience. And when he shows up to that age, it talks about his clothing being washed in grapes, or the blood of grapes. I won't flip there, I guess, but you can flip to Revelation 19, and you can hear about the second coming of Christ. And it talks about his robe being dipped in blood. And he comes back a second time, the second coming, and he establishes his kingdom on the earth. And from there, you'll see he has the obedience of all people. In 1 Corinthians 15, it talks about until, right? He has to go until he gets everyone subject to him and under his control and power. And so there's some cool stuff there as we see these prophecies that they play out. But Judah, he's the one worth watching. There is some interesting other prophecies in here. I actually don't have a clock to see what time it is. I'll go a little further. Why not? Zebulun shall dwell by the haven of the sea, and shall become a haven for ships, and his border shall adjoin Sidon. Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between two burdens. He saw the rest was good, and the land was pleasant. He bowed his shoulder to bear a burden, and became a band and became a band of slaves. You go through, these all play out in the locations of the land where they get the minerals you find there, the landscape, all this stuff. Once you start seeing the allotment of the land, you see how it all plays out. But one of interesting, thoughts, when you get to verses 16, 17, and 18, it says, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, a viper by the path, that bites its horse's heels, so that its rider shall fall backward. I have waited for your salvation, O Lord. Now, in here, we hear multiple people, Hippolytus, Irenaeus, others, they think that this serpent is a picture of the Antichrist and that we're seeing it coming out of the tribe of Dan. I've heard people go different directions with this. I'm just giving you these verses so you've got these ones in your data bank so you can have it in your thoughts. A viper by the path. Now, it's a viper or an adder. And the idea of this snake is it's camouflaged and it attacks unexpectedly. It's something that you don't see coming. It looks like the surroundings, you're unsuspecting, and then boom, all of a sudden you are bit. It's worth noting that Dan is the one tribe not mentioned of the 144,000 listed in Revelation. And then our last little nugget, which is a fun one. I have waited for your salvation, O Lord. Your salvation, if you read it in the Hebrew, is Yeshua. And so it really says, I have waited for Yeshua, O Yahweh. And you find this all through the Old Testament. If you want to jot down a list, I'll only say it once. I guess there's rewind for some of you. But Exodus 15:21, 1 Chronicles 16:23, Psalm 21:5, Psalm 78:20-22, Isaiah 12:2 and 56:1. These are all places where we find the word salvation in the Hebrew, but it's literally Yeshua. And some of them are just very, very cool if you read it and you read it that way. Let me at least flip to where are we going here? 15. Oh, yeah. No, sorry. Exodus 15:2. I had a little scratch in there. I thought it was 21. The Lord is my strength and my song, and the Lord has become Yeshua. It's my salvation in English, but in the Hebrew, Yahweh is my strength and song, and he has become Yeshua. There's some cool stuff in there. So, all right, we made it halfway through the chapter. God bless.